Yo, 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 guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Game Sheets Clay podcast. It's your boy Gautam with my boy Matt. Matt, welcome back, brother. Missing Chuckster on this episode. Happy Thanksgiving weekend to everybody. How we doing, brother? How we doing?
Dude, good. Been not a stressful week. I think we'll probably get into it when the time comes, but just expectations are lowering. They say happiness is expectations minus reality. So we're getting a little happier here and there. No, stuff's good, man. I watched that game from last night. We're recording this on Saturday, to be clear, after the Spurs game. Watched the game this morning to catch up for the pod. Didn't get a chance to watch it last night. When you know what happens, you're less stressed out about it. It's great stuff. No complaints, man. Happy Thanksgiving week. Family, friends, good stuff. You?
Likewise, man. Niners got a big dub in Seattle on Thursday. Always fun to beat those guys, especially in their house, and then to get revenge for them eating turkey at Levi's in 14. So it was nice to see that. Warriors, like you said, man, expectations are what they are. They don't change for me, but I'm starting to come around to the fact that these guys might just be a little old. But that being said, Warriors beat the Spurs 118-112 last night, under 240. So won some money on that one. But kind of a weird game. Matt, I know you said you watched it on a rewatch, didn't watch it live, but obviously kind of as you were watching that game, just kind of clunky, man. Like just a weird win.
Good word to use.
Yeah, just San Antonio. I think I texted it in our group chat, like was looking forward to them shooting 10 for 14 or whatever it was, and they didn't disappoint. They were hitting a lot of shots, a lot of tough ones, but Warriors defense looked real sus in that first quarter and a half. They started to figure it out. Built up. I think the lead got as high as 18 in the second half, and then in true Warriors fashion this year, just found a way to almost give it right back to the Spurs. I think they cut it to 3 at some point with like less than 20 seconds. A lot of turnovers, so just a weird win. But hey, when you're an 8-9 ball club, 17 games in, you'll take a win any way you can. So I mean, just coming in, Matt. Obviously, we're recording after a little bit. I think our last episode was before the Rockets game, I want to say.
Sounds right.
So I think so. We're 2-3, or two wins in the last 3 games. But the Warriors not playing as to the par as we've seen. That Phoenix loss was kind of the one team in this stretch that we can kind of say is kind of a barometer in terms of a team that we think is up there in terms of Western Conference contenders. But and the Rockets no slouch. Obviously, it's still a very good team this year. But just kind of give you your vibe check, man. 17 games in. Obviously, you're getting Draymond back. But 2-3 during the suspension. You're sitting at 8-9. Kind of just still trying to get that signature win of the year and really kind of get the season rolling where it feels like the Warriors haven't really been able to capitalize on momentum building stretches. So just kind of give me your vibes 17 games in, and especially after just last night, talking through last night or whatever this morning for you and the season as a whole so far.
Yeah, well, the vibes I would say are geriatric for one. This team is old, man. You said it earlier, they look old, they're playing old. It just feels like we're just watching these guys shoot jumpers all day, man. And it's that's not a bad thing on its own, right? You've got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson on the team. Chris Paul's kind of finding his groove. He didn't shoot the ball very well last night. But it's just like it's we know what it's gonna be. Like every shot, we know for the most part it's not coming within the paint. It's just not. I think we've all been saying this, and it's common. The vibes, jokes aside, the vibes aren't great, right? It's not. This team's not fun to watch right now. They don't look happy. It's one of those things. The first 5 games, it felt like that joy was back, and that doesn't mean that the team can't recapture it. But right now, it's just like you can tell everybody's just on edge. Like Clay's getting pissed off apparently going into the half after a bad stretch from him. Steph just doesn't look like thrilled in general right now. Like his face is just that of like, I'm going to make sure we win this game because I think I'm going to lose my shit if we don't. Wiggins and Clay still aren't totally awesome. I thought Clay actually had a pretty solid game yesterday, or at least had solid stretches. He's passing the ball really well, I thought. But no, I think it's time to start maybe managing expectations a bit for this team. I don't, even if Clay plays, well, and Wiggins plays well, I don't think this team is better than any of the top teams in the league right now. And I can't think of any playoff teams that I would say they're definitively better than. Like, we're watching Indiana put on these awesome shows. I'm not saying they're better or worse than Indiana, but we're watching all these teams, the Magic, the Rockets, like you were saying, the Wolves and the Thunder last night, I think it was, right? Just these teams they're just really good. Or the Kings, pardon me, the Wolves and the Kings. It feels like watching those teams, they can put points on the board with some semblance of ease. You know what I mean? Like, they can get easy buckets here and there because they have athletic guys, or they have guys who can score around the basket. The Warriors have athletic guys. Those guys aren't scorers as of right now, and they have nobody, it seems like, who can get an easy bucket around the basket. It's hard to watch, man. It's just like, again, it's great to come out of last night with a win, but we got to keep in mind that Spurs team's on a 10-game losing streak. I think that's not a great basketball team. They're not playing to win. Like, the broadcast talked about it. It's kind of been all over the place where they're almost intentionally not playing their best lineups, right? And so to almost blow that in a way too familiar fashion just sucks, man. Like, it sucks ass. Like, how does this happen every game where, like, the bench is good, the bench will maintain a lead or cut down a lead? I feel like we're still in this weird, zone though, where they're not going to build a lead anymore. It just feels like if the team is struggling, or if they're, if Steph's not in the game, it still feels stressful, man. It still just feels sketchy. So vibes are low. The vibes are geriatric. I think this team needs changes. We'll get into Draymond stuff when he gets back in a minute. But how are you feeling, man? Because I'm just not. I just can't with this team right now, man. Even after a win, I can't do it. Go ahead.
I mean, that's fair, man. I don't want to say I'm completely with you. I still think that in a 7-game series, this team is built the right way. And what I mean by that is, obviously we haven't had Draymond for a majority of the season. A, for injury, and then B, for choking Rudy Gobert, which again we're totally fine with. I just want to put that out there. But no, I think that for me the biggest takeaway from last night was it's the starting lineup. The bench, it honestly looks very, very good. Guys like Saric. I think GP2 coming back was really underrated. Missing him for a few games. Just the energy he brought from defense.
He was so good last night, man.
Yeah, and like he's
so good.
And so I think I said this last night. The Warriors don't have a set 5-man unit that they can roll out there that can defend and also get out in transition and run. Whether that's, I think the best lineup that did that was like Steph, Wiggins, Moody, GP, and Sarge or TJ. One of those.
Probably Sarge, man. Sarge balling out yesterday.
Sarge balling. So that Steph like and Goons lineup where you got guys who are kind of 3-and-D and can. Moody, Wiggins, honestly, he's really I'm kind of okay with Wiggs at this point. He's defensively feels like he's kind of getting his stride back, and the jumper's starting to fall. He's getting a little bit more aggressive. So I think Wiggs is quietly put together, a solid, last 5-6 games. But again, it comes down to the starters. They just look a step slow, and that includes Steph. Just with the careless turnovers. Just weird shots, man. Like I think we've gotten so used to, some of these Clay just kill shots and Steph getting, obviously he's still doing what he's doing at 35, but without Draymond out there, they just look a step slow defensively and rightfully so. I mean, you're a smaller team, especially like they didn't start Chris Paul last night, thank God. But even with that starting lineup with Moody out there, who I thought played a really good game. But I think we're kind of seeing that passing of the torch for some of these starting guys like Clay, like Wiggins, Looney, where they're not going to be the best plus minus this year. And I think even when Draymond comes back, it's not going to change dramatically. I think
so. Can I ask you then? Do you feel like, are you saying kind of this that like plus $1 million starting lineup we had last year? Are you saying that version of that, or that like super powered version of that's like kind of dead to you? Like it's not going to be this like. It's not a bad thing. I'm just curious. Do you think like, is it time to say like, hey, that lineup was great. That lineup works to a certain extent, but it can't be the lineup that they go to every night expecting to to take a big lead or extend a big lead.
Yeah, and I mean, from the way I see it is these guys like that starting five. Obviously we get Draymond back on Tuesday, but those five guys like they obviously have the benefit of doubt in my eyes. Until like a seven or whatever, not even like a 7 game sample size isn't going to change that. But the rest of the 4 guys, they do look a step slower. Just playing as a unit, and when you have these other young guys like a guy like Sarge, GP, Moody, Kuminga to come off the bench and really just provide that additional burst. I think it's time that you really have to reassess some of these roles. I think last night we saw Clay didn't check back in until like a minute 46 left. And the funny enough, that's when they started blowing the lead. No disrespect to Clay, but no, man, it's just, like you said, it's not fun at times watching them. And the most fun lineups and the ones where they were getting out in transition and running were a combination of like Steph and the bench guys, or like CP and Clay and whatever. And I really don't think you can run that Steph, CP, Clay lineup anymore. Like they're too small. Clay's just not the creator of a shot anymore. He's really just a catch and shoot guy. If he's wide open, he's gonna hit it. If he's got to take a dribble or relocate and kind of pump fake and do that, odds are it's not going in right now. So I think there's a lot of stuff personnel wise and rotation wise that Steve Kerr has to figure out in the coaching staff. But yeah, I mean, for me last night, I put it back into perspective, man. You're 8-9, you're 17 games in, so like you have a long way to go. So the fact that they're still stacking dubs, or continuing to 2-7 in their last 9 games, like you got to find ways to just stack W's at this point. It's November, but I expect that when Draymond comes back, defensively at least, they look better. And last night, second quarter on, they look pretty good defensively up until that last like 3-4 minutes. So my vibes are, yeah, I'm with you. I still think that in a 7-game series that if healthy, it's just going to be hard to beat these guys 4 times, and that's strictly because of Steph and everybody else. I just believe that they know how to win. But watching last night, especially that kind of a collapse towards the end, was just kind of like, yo, what the hell's going on? This is not the Warriors that we know, especially a team that's won 4 championships, has guys out there that have been in the league for a long time now and know how to win. It kind of reminded me of that Nuggets game. I think it was game 6, that first series where they were up like double digits and then the Nuggets like clawed back to somehow just turnovers, fouls, whatever it was, like that first series that they ever played. So that's kind of what it reminded me of last night. But in terms of vibe check for the season, I'm still hopeful. You're 8-9. You're still kind of surviving. You've survived the Draymond suspension, but now it's time to go on a run. There's really no more excuses. They haven't been at that homestand that they went 1-5 on, was supposed to be kind of that chance to take that next step. And you play some tough teams with the T-Wolves and the Thunder, but you let one slip away with the Chet foul or non-foul for 3 and lost that game in overtime. The T-Wolves game, I think it was the second one, they kind of blew as well. So it's not that they haven't been in positions to win this game, but they haven't played a full 48 minutes of basketball yet. And again, you're approaching December, so it's not dead in my eyes. My expectation is still that get to April healthy, stay out of the plan, same as last year, kind of stay out of the plan, get healthy, and they're gonna have a shot. But the process has to be there, and I haven't seen that yet. So again, there's a lot of time in the season. You're gonna get your full squad here starting Tuesday. So in my eyes, it's time to go on a run. You're 8-9, and you got to string together a 4 or 5 game winning streak and really start to make a dent into the Western Conference. Because like you said, these young teams, man, they're here to stay. The Kings, the Timberwolves, the Thunder, the Nuggets, obviously. So the Suns are looking like they're kind of starting to figure stuff out with KD and Book. So, yeah, I mean, the West is a bloodbath. So you really have to find ways to win games. And the Warriors have not done that consistently over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with anything you said. For the most part, I think it's all like, it's just kind of the way it is, right? I am not gonna, with regards to like the long-term outlook, I don't think this roster is a championship roster. I just don't. I'm gonna keep saying that. I don't think this version of Clay and this version of Wiggins.
Yeah, agreed.
Listen, I think we kind of look past this because last year was horrible, right? But just a quick little aside, like Jordan Poole was the second best scorer on this team last year. I'm not going to say player, but as far as I should say shot creator. Okay, that's probably a better word to use. Clay was more efficient player last year than Poole was, more important player than Poole was last year by a lot. But all of a sudden, it's like Wiggins and Clay are kind of both in this. Who's the second? I'm going to say second option, but I don't actually mean that. I just mean who's the second guy right now, right? And those two guys are not equipped to occupy that space very often anymore, I don't think. And it didn't go well last year because Poole sucked last year, right? But when it went well with Poole, like Wiggins was clearly not he was a fourth guy sometimes, right? It was clear. Like he was a guy who was benefiting from all the space in the world. He was benefiting from minimal amounts of attention. Same thing with Clay to a lesser extent, right? You just have less pressure on you because there are other guys out there, right? And I'm not saying this team misses Poole or shouldn't have traded. I think Poole, again, you're seeing Jordan Poole outside of a like stable context right now, and it's one of the most.
It's tough being the number one guy, man.
It's like he's like a combination of Lance Stevenson and Nick Young right now. It's crazy stuff. So, but I also do want to point out, I don't think Clay can only. I don't think he needs to only be a catch and shoot guy right now. Like I think you saw a lot of what he can do as like a patient playmaker yesterday.
Yeah,
or just a heads up. Yeah, 5-6 assists, and they were all like they're all plays that are going to be there all the time. Like one, he came off a flare screen from Moody, and Moody slipped the screen. Clay dumped it off to him real quick for the first play of the game. Top of the key ones, I think TJD got a really deep seal to paint. And Clay pump fake, his guy came down, he waited. TJD got even deeper. Clay hits him. No one else is there. It's a foul call, doesn't get the assist, but it's a great look. Throw ahead pass to Kuminga for a dunk. Like he's just, I think this patient version of Clay can almost be like I think of guys like Sabonis and again, I'm going to be clear, hear me out before I finish the sentence. I don't think Clay is a passer. Any of these guys are, but Sabonis or Jokic or David Lee back in the day are guys like we think about these big men who operate out of the elbow, right? And are really patient with the ball. They're finding cutters. Clay is not that. His role will never be that. He's never going to be a high usage passing player like that. But if he can be patient when he has the ball, like stuff's just going to open up, right? And if he keeps the ball moving, there's going to be, if he can find a cutter, if he can find a slipper on the screen, if he can find a dive man, whatever it is, right? We've seen that version of Clay when he's not forcing shots up. He's in a good spot. He's still 6'7". He's still a bigger guard or wing. He can see the floor pretty well if he's trying to. I would just love to see. To your point, I don't think Clay's put the ball on the floor anymore. Like I don't think that he shouldn't. He really just like, unless he's dribbling out of space to get a pass off, I don't think he needs to be dribbling the ball right now. He can't. He's not. His self-created shots are just not going in. We've seen the guy get his shit blocked too many times recently. But I do think there's a role for him as a patient elite shooter still. And like he still can take advantage of a lot of what just his gravity provides. And I want to see more of that because when he does it, it looks great. I also want to point out, I was kind of saying earlier that this team doesn't have anybody who wants to score at the rim. Gary Payton II, man, what a fucking stud. Finishing around Wemby. He's dropping dimes around Wemby, man. He's just like
walking into the second row. Like GP,
oh my God.
Underrated guy that we've missed. And really one of the only guys right now that you can confidently put out there that plays both sides of the ball and like can impact both sides offensively and defensively. Obviously defensively, just with his on-ball pressure, he's picking up guys full court, just that's his natural instinct. But even there was one possession, ball was swinging. GP set a screen. Steph hit him for the cut and kind of just hit him with a little reverse layup. And those are the kind of that was like the Warriors basketball look that we haven't seen really too much of this year. Where the ball is kind of just moving. You're playing that 0.5 basketball where you just know exactly what's happening. So GP is a guy that's a connector. I think Draymond is also that kind of a player, and to miss those two guys for 3 and 5 games respectively, is definitely taking a toll on this roster in terms of the looks that they're creating. But it starts on the defensive end, man. Like the Warriors just in that first quarter, they couldn't get a stop. Guys were blowing by. The Spurs were getting any shot that they wanted, and like you said, that it was not as good as the young talent that they have, like Wemby, Vassell, Keldon Johnson. They're not a good team. They're 3-14 now or whatever, 3-13. That's not a good basketball team. They should not be able to put 35 points up in 10 minutes of basketball, which is what they did. So I think it starts for this team defensively. I think that the ratings and the numbers with Draymond in there and G, like with a full squad, I think they're top 15, I want to say, if it might be even higher. So it's not that we haven't seen it. I just think we need to see a larger sample size of it. And with I'm not gonna blame Draymond for the 5-game suspension, because obviously we covered it and like this we kind of agreed with it, but we need him on the court, man. Like he obviously missed training camp with a sprained ankle, got ejected from a couple games, and then obviously the suspension. So we really haven't seen Draymond with this team that much. So it really just begs the question. I think the defense is going to lead the offense. This team, when they were getting out in transition last night, when they were able to run the floor, they were scoring at will. They were getting stops, and they were able to put the clamps on the Spurs, and that's when they built that 18-point lead. So it's possible. It's like you can see the formula for success for these guys. We just have to see it now. Like we like it's really go time.
It almost feels like they need a lead, like a big lead to win a lot of close games. I just don't. Again, I think a lot of the talk about like second story stuff becomes all the more amplified and visible when the game's close to the end and everybody sells out on Steph, and all of a sudden you're watching Wiggins basically shoot with his fucking eyes closed. You know what I mean? But no, I also want to hit on. I think that was all like, yeah, like the defense. When the defense is good, and to your point, when Gary Payne's on the floor, it's just things look so much better, right? This team can get out and run a little bit. You said something earlier that I think is pretty important, right? They don't have 5 guys that they are confident in can close a game. And I think a lot of people in response to that would say something like, hey, they have different guys every night. There is something to be said for knowing, hey, I know at the very Steve Kerr being able to say there are 5 guys I can put on the floor at the end of a game, and I'm confident they can take us home. That's a gift. That's like a thing that a
you're
team
at 3 at most, I'd say.
I'd say 2.5. I would say Draymond, I would say Steph, and I would say Gary Payton at this point are guys where I'm like,
yeah,
if you're on the floor, I feel okay. I feel
I throw Moses Moody in there.
Confident. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Also, shit, man, what the hell does this kid have to do? What does this kid have to do? How does he still? Again, he threw some bad passes yesterday that led to turnovers at some inopportune moments. Let the kid play through it, man. He's putting the ball in the basket. He's playing solid defense. He's trying the right things. He's missed time some things, but guess what? Give the kid more reps. He'll grow out of those. I can't, man. I can't with the
and that goes back to like our earlier point of like you really got to reassess the roles of the guys on this team. Like, look, man, we love Clay, we love Wiggins. They're obviously forever stamped in terms of like what they've done for Warriors basketball. But in today, right now, I trust Moses Moody out there more in the clutch than I do Clay and Wiggins. And like that's no knock on these guys, but they haven't played like they're supposed to be your second and third best guys. They're arguably your second and third worst players right at this point of the season, like in terms of how they've played. And like that's like you said, man, Clay. There's moments like he when he's patient, when he's not forcing the issue, he's solid. And when he's taking the shots that come to him, that's the beauty of this Warriors offense is that Klay Thompson is always going to get looks, especially if you're playing with Steph and Draymond. Klay is going to be the beneficiary of a lot of these, swing passes, the guys just moving off the ball. Klay is going to be the guy that eats the most. So for him to force the issue and take these, contested pull-up shots that obviously we've seen him make his entire career. He's not the same player as he was, before the injury. And so like, and there's no problem with that. Like it has to be a concerted effort from both the coaching staff and the players to understand like, hey, this is what I can do confidently right now. This is what, he can't defend guys on the perimeter as well as you could back in the day. Like, and that's no knock. Dude had tore his Achilles and tore his ACL. Like that shit happens, man. But like, there are ways. I love Klay defending in the post. I think he's a strong post defender. I think he should get more credit than people give him in terms of like his ability to bang down low and get rebounds and push the ball. So there's different ways to use these guys. Same with Wiggins. I think defensively he's looked still also a little step slow, but he's younger. I didn't have a full training camp.
It's just like, hey, he's younger. He's a 99 percentile athlete. It's a little more likely that Wiggins
more leeway to get like figure it out. Yeah. But as the jumper starts to fall, I think the confidence will come back. But you have options. That's been the whole thing with the bench is that you have options in Moody, Kuminga, GP. guys that can step in and connect these lineups that didn't necessarily need connecting in years prior, which again, that falls on the coaching staff to figure that out and make that move now. Like you can't like play around and
it is just kind of like, it feels like, hey, we're almost 20 games in. You're almost,
and that's kind of the barometer.
Kerr does not make a change. Yeah. I guarantee you Kerr doesn't make a change till 25% of the way through the season. But at a certain point, there's a mindset where it's early yet and things can change. There's also a mindset where you got to start figuring out what's going to work.
You got to win games, and
exactly.
You're 8-9, like you're a below 500 basketball team right now. So things got to change. Obviously, it's not working. When they were 6-2, we weren't saying the same thing. They were like, "Hey, we're winning games, and you're playing through this and figuring out 8 games in, whatever." But like you said, 20 games, 25 games. That's really where you kind of start to assess what kind of team you are and what moves need to be made, what changes need to be made within the roster, the rotation. So they're at that point. At this point, I think 17 games is a solid sample size. Even if you haven't had the luxury of having Draymond out there as much as you have, but it's go time, man. Like it's time to figure it out. But that being said, they do get Draymond back on Tuesday against the Kings. Very big implications with the in-season tournament. I didn't even realize until after last night. The Warriors still have a great chance to win this group with I think it's a win against the Kings and a T-Wolves loss, or they got to beat the Kings by like 13 or something like that. But with Draymond coming back, obviously this is going to be the healthiest the roster has been probably since that second game against Sacramento. What do you think the rotation has to look like? Because obviously Draymond's going to step back in, and that starting five is going to be the OG starting five, unless something crazy happens. But it seems like it's going to be that Steph, Clay, Draymond, Wiggins, Looney, and then obviously the bench guys. What do you think that rotation has to look like now that you have Draymond and GP back, in terms of finding that right five, I guess, to really go on runs and close games out?
So with regards to the starters, there are kind of two things that I think need to be true, or need to happen, or one of two things needs to happen, I think. And I don't like saying this. I don't give a shit. I'm saying that's dramatic. I don't care. Listen, I think Looney Draymond pairing needs to be dead. Like, I think it needs to be gone. And again, if Clay was shooting the lights out, or if Wiggins was still putting up 18 a game, I might feel differently, but those guys aren't doing that right now. And they need all the space they can get, and they need to create all the points in the paint they can create. I don't think they're going to be doing that with Looney and Draymond any longer. I'm sure Steve Kerr will experiment when Draymond gets back, because Draymond's played has he missed half the season so far? I think
he's played 7 games.
Okay, so more than half the season, basically. Yeah, so I think Looney needs to go to the bench. I think either the Warriors need to start small with Dre at the 5 and stick either GP2 or Moody in the starting lineup and just say, hey, can we create some space and get Steph some looks in the paint, get Gary Payton some looks in the paint, hopefully get Wiggins feeling a little bit better about attacking, or start Sarge at the 4 and get Looney out there, man, because out of there, pardon me. And again, not any shade at Looney, but this team just needs some juice, and I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that Sarge has been their second best player this year in some ways because of Draymond's absence. Maybe Chris Paul, again, same thing, but they need some changes, and I want to see that with that starting group, and just say, hey, can we create some more space, create some more offense? I don't think they're going to miss a whole lot with Looney on the bench right now, to be totally frank. Looney's been a warrior, to be clear. I tweeted today that Looney's been way more willing to put the ball in the hoop this year. If he has a mismatch or he's got space, he's putting his shoulder into a guy and he's getting the ball up, and it's actually been working out pretty well. It's not meant to be anything against him, but I think we're just seeing Sarge is legit. He's a really good passer. He's a really good shooter. He is just he's a Steve Kerr player in so many ways. His finishing around the basket's gotten a lot better in the last week or two, I think. So just make a change, man. We know this group's not working. And again, hopefully if you can get space for Wiggins to get going to the rack, that happens. Or again, get Moody out there, get GP2 out there. Fine. But again, I think we just need to see when Draymond gets back, Steve Kerr be willing to experiment and tinker more. And that might mean getting Kuminga out there. I think Kuminga had a nice game yesterday. I think, I forget what game it was within the last 3-4 games, but he had a lot of minutes alongside Steph and Clay, and you just saw him attacking the paint relentlessly. And again, so many of this team's issues, I feel like, come from just their weird spacing, man. They just have these really strange lineups. So I think Chris Paul starting needs to be dead. I think Looney starting probably needs to die. I want to see some changes on that front. I think getting Moody or GP2 in that opening lineup creates more minutes for guys like Pods if necessary, which I like Pods a lot. I don't know how much Pods needs minutes right now. He's a plus player. He's a plus every game, so I get it. But this team's got to start consolidating somewhere. You've said this a lot. You've been really on this, and I think the more I think about it, the more I agree. Like, hey, with Kuminga and Moody, either shit or get off the pot, man. Like, you got to figure out what you got in these guys. Generally speaking, I feel like when those guys are put in good positions to succeed, they do. But if you're not going to be willing to play these guys, pardon me, year 3 and on a year where you're struggling very similarly to last year, listen, showcase them, get them out of here. I like them both a lot, but if they're not part of what you're trying to do, are part of the process for what you think is going to win a title this year, and that's what you believe as an organization, as a coaching staff, you can't keep dancing around it. Like, those guys either need to play, and you need to realize that they bring things that this team doesn't have outside of them, or you need to trade them for guys who will play. Because at this point, man, we're seeing Moody get the rookie treatment, we're seeing Kuminga get the rookie treatment, and we're seeing other guys not get that, right? And again, that doesn't mean you don't let guys play through mistakes, but I think you should be letting guys who have more upside. And I love Clay, I love Wiggins. We know what those guys can give us, right? With Moody and Kuminga, let them play through their mistakes, because the things they can give you, if you do let them play through, those are the things you don't have right now. So again, I want to see Kerr be willing to play the best guys from a game, like he said he would. So I don't think we've actually seen that so far. But I want to see those two lineups, the starting lineups, change a little bit. And I want to see Steve really start treating Chris Paul, who, again, can't say enough. He's been good. He's been really good. Start treating him like a backup point guard. I'm sorry to say, but that's what he needs to be. And I agree with you, the 3-guard lineups, which are constant, man. It is constantly 2 out of 3 of Pod, Steph, and CP are always on the floor. I get it. At a certain point, you're not going to get stops. We saw it in OKC. We saw it in Minnesota. Like, you can't keep doing it. So treat Chris Paul like a backup point guard. Make a change to that starting group. I don't know what it has to be, but they need some juice. They look old. They look slow, and they are. So make it different. That's it. What do you think?
No, I mean, I agree 100% with every single adjustment you had. I think that the starting lineup, I'm with you. I don't think they're going to make a change on Tuesday, just because Looney's done a great job on Sabonis. So they kind of know how to play the Kings, and that starting 5 is in both games against the Kings. I know Fox wasn't there for one of them, but they played the Kings obviously pretty well. So I don't see a change happening on Tuesday, but I'm with you. I think that, like you said, man, you just have to put out lineups that can assert themselves on both ends of the floor. I think if you have the lineup where, even if you start a Saric at the 4 and Draymond at the 5, I think that again creates a lot of space. I'd love to see a guy like GP in the starting lineup. I think that, like you said, he's a connector, man. Like, he plays basketball the right way. He's smart. And defensively, he's going to be out there. Him and Draymond are going to be a tandem defensively. And, this starting unit needs to find ways to get stops first and foremost, which they're not able to do. So I completely agree. My thing with Moody and Kuminga is they're kind of tailor-made to take that Clay and Wiggins spot, like they deserve, like you said, they deserve to either put up or shut up. It's like you said, it's year 3. And the wildest part to me is that they've shown that, given, a lengthy rope, that they're going to impact the game positively more often than not. So I don't know if, I don't know if it's, early in the season and Steve doesn't want to, yank his 2, main wings confidence early, but it's getting to that point where, you really have to adjust. Maybe Clay and Wiggins play 25 minutes a game and these guys play 25, like you have to find the combos that work. And honestly, I'm more confident with Clay with Kuminga and Wiggins, or Kuminga and Moody out there, than I am with Clay and Wiggins when they're out there together. So
at the very least, I'm just more entertained, man. I'm like, at least what I'm seeing, if they're going to lose this way, I'm like, hey, show me something new. If they lose because these guys can't play, show us they can't play. You know what I mean? So far, it's not what I think. I think those guys can play, and I totally agree. Like, I want to see something fucking new, because the shit we're seeing that's not working hasn't been working for a long time.
Yeah, and again, that's and like I hate to sound like I'm a Steve Kerr basher, but this year, man, I've been thoroughly underwhelmed with the rotations and the combinations that the coaching staff's putting out there. And again, nothing to take away from Steve Kerr and what he's done for this team. And that's nothing. Again, this is kind of a it's kind of a catch-22 where you're like, yo, like we were here for the rise of the dynasty. We saw them at their peak, and obviously the fall off was going to happen at some point. Maybe it's this year. And through 17 games, it looks like Clay's kind of regressed a little bit. Haven't seen Draymond out there, and Steve Kerr seems pretty set in his ways. So like Steph is really the only one where obviously he's playing at an all-time level, and the guy's doesn't look like he's slowing down, but he looked gassed last night, man. Like you really have to find ways to help your superstar out. He's out there running 200 feet on a single possession, and like, dude, it looked visibly gassed at the end of the game. And Steph is the most like the best conditioned athlete that it's all documented. Like the guy is obviously running is not like something that's gonna stop him. So if Steph Curry's gassed, clearly you need other guys to step up. I think it was the Rockets game where I think they had like 6 guys in double figures. Steph had like a quiet 32 or something like that. And that's how they got to win games is getting everybody else involved early. Finding the right rotations and combinations is the way to do that, and allow Steph to kind of sleepwalk through and like let him be a facilitator, let him run off the ball and do and play his game. But to need him to score 35 to beat a Spurs team like that last night, and obviously the way the game unfolded was you can argue that they had the game for a while, but again, like you should not be in positions like that where you really need Steph to bail you out with how deep we know this roster is. Like we've said it since the offseason, man. They're 10 deep, 12 deep, really, or if you really want to add in Pods and TJD, who I think have done pretty well in their minutes. So you have the insulation of people on the roster that can play. So now it's just about finding the right combo. So it's really on the coaching staff, and it's on these vets, man. Like they have to realize, like, yo, Clay, like if the shot's not going, if you're not, you're gonna get yanked, and that's something that nobody, obviously no competitor, no player wants to be in that position. But at the end of the day, it's all about finding a way to win these games, and if that means that you have to go away from these guys to more youth, then so be it. Yeah, well, I do. On a positive note, I do think that with Draymond coming back, that it's going to solve a lot of defensive issues, at least for the starting lineup. And obviously we know how well Steph and Draymond play together, how well Draymond can kind of be that facilitator and get the team going. So I'm excited to see Draymond out there. I think that he fixes a lot for what this team is lacking at this time. They're 5-2 with him, and I think their 2 losses were, honestly, I can't think of them on the top of my head, but I think one of them was a Cleveland game where he got ejected, and maybe it was the T-Wolves game too that he got the suspension. So yeah, I mean, I think we'll see. There's still, the jury's still out on this team for me in terms of just seeing them fully healthy and seeing a larger sample size. But again, man, it's time. Like you have to go on a run now. You're healthy. No more excuses. You're supposed to be this, veteran team that's won, or not supposed, you are this veteran team that's won 4 championships, been to 6 finals. It's time to show it now. So the West is a bloodbath, and again, like we said earlier, these young teams, they're not slowing down. The T-Wolves look legit. The Thunder, very, very legit. Kings, Rockets look good, and I know we've beaten them twice, but so you really don't have that much leeway in terms of avoiding the play-in, which is, again, that's the biggest goal, is to stay out of that play-in 7 to 10 spot, get into the top 6 and go from there. Obviously a long way to go. But before we get out of here, Matt, your favorite player or player you're most thankful for, shout out Thanksgiving. Thankful for all you guys, listeners and everything. But the player you're most thankful for, not named Steph Curry, 17 games into this year.
Man, this is tough. So I got to go with Draymond. Just kidding. For me, it's one of 2 guys. I'm gonna, maybe you'll take the other one, perhaps. I'm going with Saric. The guy I think he's the only guy to score 20 more than once, 20 plus more than once for this team, or besides Steph. He just very much reminds me. He gives off Warriors big man of old vibes, just like David Lee, Bogut, passing bigs. These guys that we loved back in the day. Steve Kerr didn't have a lot of David Lee time in his career, but that was one of my favorite players pre dynasty, just because again he was a stud on the post, stud passer, and I don't think Dario is that level of player. And David Lee was an all-star a couple times, but he makes a lot of these lineups work. And I think for whatever the Warriors do this season, I think Dario is going to be their sixth, seventh most important player a lot of the way. So just enjoying him a lot. I really am thankful for what he's brought so far. Scoring punch, passing chops. The guy can't guard anybody, but that's, hey, like I said, David Lee, right? So just enjoying Dario Saric, man. I'm enjoying the experience. I really hope they can start trusting him more with the starting group and just as an all-around player, because the guy can play basketball. He's a really good basketball player, man. So shouts to Dario. Really enjoying that experience so far. One of those guys the Warriors are almost certainly not going to be able to keep in the offseason, whatever that time comes. But you never know. Guy's been a stud so far. How about you?
Obviously, I want to go with 30. That's not possible. I was going to say Moses Moody just because kid's a stud. Like we've said, I think he deserves a lot more playing time. I think he again is one of those guys that can impact the game and impact winning. But I'm gonna go with GP2, man. Just missing him for those last 3 games. And then just seeing the burst of energy that he brought last night. That block against Wemby just got the crowd going, and it really felt like it sparked the Warriors' first run. And just, GP from the championship year, obviously that's the way he impacted the game. I think him and Otto Porter had the top 2 plus minus in the finals where Steph Curry dominated. So just to know that what he brings to the table, having a guy that is such a defensive stalwart and can fit in any lineup, just the little big man that Fitz calls him, like I think it's a perfect name for him. So super thankful for GP. Hope he stays healthy. Obviously he's had some tough luck with the injuries the last couple years. So want to see him healthy. I think that he's going to be a huge impact on this team. And shout out Draymond too, man. Get him coming back on Tuesday. Team needs some sort of punch. No pun intended. But they need Draymond. And having GP2 back, man, is big. So but I mean, yeah, it's kind of talking through this I feel pretty good now about the team. I think that the schedule is going to lighten up too. I think they have a stretch of like the Clippers like 3 times,
Suns.
games, Suns, and then I think it gets kind of, once you start playing some of those Eastern Conference teams, schedules lightens up as December kind of approaches and you go into the new year. So there's opportunities there for the Warriors to kind of make ground back. It was not demoralizing, but just kind of I don't know what the right word is, but just kind of a shit show of the last 9 games. Felt like they sold 3 of them. And then the 2 wins also were just like, what the hell? So weird time, but you're still, again, the big picture, you're 8-9, you're very much in the picture. You're right there, you're getting healthy. So it's time now though, man. It's time to stack dubs. You have to. And yeah, let's go from there. Before we get out of here, Matt, anything you got coming up on the horizon? Anything you got to shout out?
No, guys, keep following the pod. Chuck just pumped out a piece on, I forget who. Marcus Sasser on the Pistons. Go read that. Yeah, that's about it, guys. Keep reading Chuck, keep listening, follow, 5 stars, all that good stuff. And nothing else, man. What about you?
100%, man. Same old. Follow Chuck, follow us, follow the pod. Big Niners game this weekend or next weekend against Philly. Battle. Finally, we get him with 2 healthy quarterbacks, and I think we got the better one. So hopefully this week, me, Chuck, and Matt, we can hop back on and do a little Niners Eagles preview. I think that'll be.
I've got some shit ready to go.
There we go. So the Niners are honestly are filling in the gap of the Warriors that they are. So they look good. They're back. So shout out the Niners. Little bye week here with the Thursday night beat down to Seattle. But other than that, man, until the next episode, guys, we'll catch you then. Peace.